What's up, everybody? How we doing? All right, today starting a new topic. All right, we've been messing around with the Byzantines. All right, learning how they have basically went from what was the Eastern Roman Empire, moving that capital from Rome full time to a new city called Byzantium, changing the name to Constantinople. Learning about the effects of that Silk Road trade and such. Also, we just learned about the Kievan Rus, the early foundations of Russia, and when we were learning about them, we brought up the name briefly of the Kievan Rus and then also the Mongols. All right, the Mongols, what I'm trying to say. These people right here, game changers in world history. Some people have seen them in the past as barbaric. We'll actually look at that a little bit more in the days coming up. But excuse me. But what we're planning on doing today is taking notes and figuring out exactly who these people are. You'll notice from the picture, it looks like they're warfaring people, horseback, bow and arrow type folk. So we'll go ahead and get this party started. I got my Arnold Palmer right here, a little sweet tea lemonade mix, always good. Good stuff. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, who were these people? All right, they were nomads. Nomads, as y'all are well aware, meaning they didn't really have a permanent home. All right, uh, as you can see in this picture right here, if I can actually move this, there we go. You see right here, couple dudes right here chilling, vibing. This is actually today, all right? So if you actually go to Mongolia today, which is north of China, if you look at this map, this is modern day China right here. But just above it, there's a country. This is Mongolia. People today still kind of live like this. They live out in not permanent homes in the steppes, which we call the rolling hills, basically of Asia. And they farm, all right? They not farm, but they herd cattle, basically. So they're nomadic people from the foothills of Siberian forest right here, which is north of China. As a nomadic group of people, they learned the art of herding, hunting, and they became masterful archers. I've read before where about by the time you were 2 years old, they were taking children and putting them on horseback. And I think about it. I got young boys, and 2 years old, that's young. That's really young. Think about that. 2 years old, learning how to sit on a horse, and by the time they got a little bit older, they had gotten to the point where these kids were already taking bows, arrows on horseback, no hands, right? Riding, and they're taking their shot, and they're riding, and they're riding. Whew, masterful hunters and herders and masterful archers. And this is going to pay big dividends for them in the future, right? So, the beginnings of their empire start with a leader by the name of Genghis Khan, a truly fascinating icon in world history. I have this fictional list. It doesn't actually exist, but I joke sometimes with you guys that I have my favorite people in history, and I'll throw names out there like Alexander the Great, Napoleon, uh, talk about Julius Caesar. One person to me that's really fascinating is Genghis Khan, just because he sounds like something of a fairy tale, but he's truly fascinating. So let's go ahead and figure out who this guy is. So who is? Sorry if this will let me advance. There we go. Who is this guy? Well, the first thing we need to realize is his name was Temujin. All right. Temujin, I'm moving my camera right there. Perfect. All right. So Temujin, who is this guy? Genghis Khan, born in AD, Anno Domini 1162, to a lower class family. And his birth name was actually Temujin. All right. So that's what I'm going to call him for a little bit in the story, but his name will ultimately change. We'll talk about why. At a young age, the political climate of the Mongols was less than ideal, meaning this: if there was political rivals or anything between clans, it often ended with violence. That is the case for his father. His father was actually poisoned and assassinated, and it left Temujin in charge of his family from a young age, with him being the male heir of the family, I guess you could say, in his clan. So him and his brothers are left in charge, and if you read a little bit about his his upbringing and his personal life, he showed violence from a young age. So it's no shock the things that we're going to read and see that he was behind a lot of it, but still makes him an interesting guy. Not something that I would recommend doing in my daily life. But anyways, so he grew angry with one of his brother. He ends up killing his brother at a young age over a dispute regarding the family. And then as he gets older, his family is going to have some people kidnapped, mainly the women. It was a rival tribe or clan, and they're going to come in and take a lot of the women. And that's a threat to him. He loses his wife, all right? And this was commonplace, and he has to go back and take some clan members with him, and they go back and try to rescue these women who've been kidnapped. Now, He rescues his wife, and by doing so, he is going to earn the utmost respect of his people, and he is going to be appointed as the leader of his clan. Now, at this point, the Mongols, if I can go back, there we go. If I can go back, this area right here, this is modern day Mongolia. The people here were not really unified. It was a bunch of small clans in the area that kind of lived their own separate lives. Yes, they were herdsmen, nomads who kind of lived on their own, but he has bigger plans, Genghis Khan, all right, or Temujin. His ultimate goal, after he shows his great leadership qualities, is to bring the people of the Mongol, I guess you could say, race together. All right, to bring them together, to make them live in harmony with one another. But he doesn't do that peacefully. What he does is he declares war on all Mongols, basically saying, if I can defeat you, I will become your leader. So he does that. Him and his clan, they get on horseback with Temujin in the lead. He goes and he conquers, and he takes a few years doing this. But slowly by little by little, he is going to bring the Mongol people together. Now, with that being said, over time, he does unite the Mongol people, and his name will formally change to Genghis Khan, meaning, let me get a swig of this, universal ruler. Universal. When I say the word universal, what do you think of? Universal means all, right? If I say like a universal cable for like a TV, it's supposed to be something that adapts, right? It's supposed to make things, I guess, come together. He wanted to be the universal ruler. Like, think of the universe, the galaxy, right? It's talking about all. That was his goal. Maybe not to conquer the whole world, but to conquer the world that he could. That was his goal. Now, he gained a lot of support. When people took it over, originally they resisted. They fought back against him, but over time, he earned the respect of the Mongol people. And here's why. Tell me what y'all think of this. The first reason why is he ranked people on merit. Merit, not privilege. For so long in history, and we see it from the beginning of time, people were placed certain places in society not because they were fit for the job. They were placed certain places in society because of who they were, who their mommy and daddy was, right? That's not fair. And Genghis Khan or Temujin realized that. He grew up in a situation where he was not higher class. He slowly had to work his way up to where he was in his clan and within his family, right? And he respected that. So this is a big thing. Also, if he conquered you, he would kill your leader. That sounds kind of brutal. Can anyone tell me why he probably did that? Think about that for a second. The reason why he did that is because if, let's say I'm your leader, right? Genghis Khan conquers my people, the class, right? If he kills me, who do you have to turn to? No one. You don't have me. I'm not in charge anymore. I'm dead. He did this because the ultimate goal was to make him pledge allegiance to him, not to who was ruling you, right? That was the ultimate goal here. Now, this is an interesting little picture I got right here. What in the world? Got a leader right here with a falcon on his arm sitting on a horse. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in detail right here. Check us out. So, Mongols actually kind of practice democracy, all right? Democracy meaning you what? Yeah, you vote, right? So if you wanted to be the Mongol leader, here's the steps. Step number one, you had to call a general council together. It was called a Kurultai, all right? Basically what it was is they would send out some sort of announcement, send out a herald, a messenger, and say, look, there's a Kurultai for a prospective leader, right? Let's say it's Coach Cox. I want to be the leader. I would call a Kurultai. Messengers would go all around the countryside and say, hey, we're having a Kurultai. Show up if you support this guy. So if you supported me, here's what you would do. Step two. If you supported the prospective leader, in this case me, you would show up on horse. Now remember, how did you get around in the Mongol world? It was on horseback, right? Every child from a young age learned to ride a horse. That was cultural, right? Uh, it was almost like an extension of their legs. I've read like a lot of people were better on horseback than they actually were on their own 2 feet. They were faster, more nimble. They felt really comfortable. That's just an easy way of saying that's how comfortable they were. So if you supported, you would literally just show up on your horse. You go, take your horse, drive across the countryside, say hey to everyone. What's up, Billy? I'm taking your horse. What you doing? Going to my coral tie. Right? And you're going, okay? And you'd show up on your horse. Now, if enough people showed up, you could assume you had the respect of your people. All right? Because think about it. If I was wanting to become the next leader, the Khan, as they call it in Mongol terms, the leader. If I wanted to be the Khan and only 5 people showed up, do I have support? No. But if I look and I see people sitting on horses almost as far as the eye can see, right? Do I have the people support? Oh, yeah, I do, right? So if enough people showed up to support you, that meant you were the leader. All right. So that's something interesting. Let me see how far this video is going. We'll be all right. So let's go on to the next page. So here's what happens as the Mongols slowly take over Mongolia. If I go back just a little bit, right? Slowly they're expanding. It starts small, and they're going to grow, 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 grow. Look at all that territory they're going to take. Wow, and then it splits. All right, we'll get to that later. But it starts with this. Excuse me. The Mongols wanted to go beyond Mongolia. Remember, Genghis Khan means what? Universal ruler, right? So Genghis Khan organized the Mongols into quite the conquering force. All right. A lot of historians compare what he accomplished to what the Nazis accomplished in World War II with their battle strategy called Blitzkrieg. Now, if you know anything about World War II, Blitzkrieg is a German term that means lightning war. All right. A lot of historians have considered what Khan was doing with what the Nazis were doing, how fast they attacked. Blitzkrieg, the goal was to use tanks. Get in, get out, destroy cities, take what you need to take the land, take it over, and then move on. Go to the next place. The Mongols had a similar idea, but there were no tanks back then. What they used is, guess what? It was their horses, all right? You would sometimes see cities bickering, fighting, trying to have their own little power struggles. And over the horizon, in the distance, you would see a horse, then 2 horses, 3 horses, then 100 horses, and thousands of horses, right? You would see these things, and your worst nightmare had come true. Your worst nightmare had come true. Because what this meant for you is your people were about to probably die if you decided to fight. So he terrorized most of Asia and Eastern Europe. That's what's going to end up happening. Killed men, women, children, many cities. We'll look at a primary source here in a second that describes that. But by 1227, Genghis Khan had conquered all of northern China. All right. And eventually his grandson in 1260 is going to take the throne. His name is Kublai Khan. Look at that. Dripped out, shiny bald head, right? Nice little goatee. But anyways, Kublai Khan will take the throne, his grandson. So Kublai is going to complete the conquest of China, and he is going to be named Emperor of China. Now, this is a big deal. China, for so long, had been protected, especially by what man-made structure? You should know the Great Wall of China, right? So, super protected. For the first time in history, this wall is going to be breached by invaders and in a way that leads to China's downfall temporarily. The Khans, this family is going to take over China for a significant portion of history. Now, with that being said, okay, they were different from China. All right. They were very, very much different. Let me pause this real quick. All right, I'm back. I had to get my handy dandy charger right here. My computer was getting low. But anyways, so the Khans have taken over China, right? And the weird thing about this is, even though you would look and you'd say, well, the Mongols, the Chinese, like, they can't be that much different, right? They're just north of each other. It's got to be like Americans today and Canadians. It's really not the case. These people were significantly different from one another. So here's why. Spoke different languages, practiced different religion, all right? And also their clothing was different. You can read sources where the Chinese say the Mongols, they were different. They were backwards. Even talk about the smells they smelled because these people spent so long on horseback. Sometimes, they didn't consider what they smelled like. They weren't bathing all the time, and they sometimes weren't even getting off their horses. So, compared to China, the Mongols were seen as rude, undignified, uncivilized, eating with their hands. And the Chinese did not appreciate that. China was a culture based on mutual respect and reverence, right? Peace. The Mongolians were not that. So, with that being said, you got to consider the Chinese are not going to like what the Khans are going to do in China, even though they are going to be innovators. We'll see that here in a second, exactly what was going on. So, if we continue these thoughts, all right, here's a map of what was going on. Here's the Mongol Empire before the year 1259, right? We go back a little bit. 1227, it says right here, Genghis Khan starts to conquer China, right? You can follow this through here, right? You can see just how much is going on. 1207, 1211, 1215. And you slowly see Chinggis or Genghis. Chinggis is how you say it in some cultures. We typically say Genghis, right? But you can see exactly what was going on right here. Look at this stretch. He goes down through the Huanghe, right? Which is the Yellow River, right? China's sorrow, into Beijing, right? Establishing cities and canals and new trade cultures, right? Keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, all the way across, close to the Himalayas. Now, notice he never crosses the Himalayas. Now, y'all could probably assume why he doesn't cross the Himalayas, right? What's the Himalayas? Tallest mountain range in the world, right? That's no joke. He's not crossing that. He goes around it next to the Indus River Valley, and he's going to go all the way through Iran. The city of Baghdad, an Islamic stronghold for hundreds of years, is going to be ransacked by Genghis Khan, right? Then you can see what his successors do. Genghis Khan did quite a bit, right? They're even going to, his successors are going to continue that trend in the future. They are going to continue to expand, especially north. Even the principalities of Russia right here, which we know what we call those. That's the Kievan Rus, right? He's going to continue. This, y'all, is the largest land empire in the history of mankind. Land empire meaning consecutive land. It's not like it's a bunch of islands. Britain had a massive empire in like the 1700s, but it was a lot of islands too. So we're not counting that. Consecutive land empire where the land is strung together, compact. This is the biggest. It's pretty massive, all right? So it's quite impressive what they're going to do. So the Mongols, they advance into Western Asia and they make their way towards Europe. They conquer modern day Middle East, all of it, where the Persians live, Mesopotamia, right? This area conquered. The Byzantine Empire, hanging on barely by a thread, right? So they do that. In the years 1234 through 1237, they destroy the Kievan Rus, all right? Place that we just looked at, they destroy it. They also siege Baghdad, which is interesting. With siege warfare, y'all know what a siege is, right? A siege is where basically you surround a city. Baghdad, walled city right here, Tigris, Euphrates River, they surround it. Nothing comes in, nothing goes out. And eventually these people ran out of resources, right? So that being said, you have to consider this is impressive. A city that had been the heart of Muslim civilization for so long, gone. All right, it's now under Muslim control. Also, there are other interesting situations as well. So one interesting situation that the Mongols had was a city called Kaffa, which was in the Middle East, where basically a new disease was starting to spread among the ranks of the Mongols. And what it was going along the Silk Road. We're going to learn about this very soon. But these people were getting these big, black, nasty, like lumps on their hands, on their neck, on their chest, their back. And they didn't know what it was. And these things started to pop and they were infected with pus. And it's really gross. What it was, and they didn't realize what it was, but it's one of the nastiest diseases that has ever hurt mankind. It's the Black Death, the bubonic plague. Well, what was happening is, as these people traveled on horseback, some of their soldiers were dying. They would take the bodies with them, sometimes in siege warfare, especially in Kaffa, which is over here in the Middle East. All right. But they took the bodies and launched them with a trebuchet of sorts, like a launching mechanism. And they would take these bodies, fling them over the wall into cities until the cities would surrender. And what was happening is these bodies would explode like on impact. It's disgusting. It's very common with them They were not worried about what people thought. They wanted to win. And they said, this is an easy way to do it. It'll scare them. People in the city's getting sick, and they come out and surrender, right? And they use dirty tactics sometimes to win. Also, this is significant. The Battle of Angelot, all right? They tried to get into Africa. They did, all right? Their ultimate goal was to continue to take over Silk Road trade routes, which ran through the Arabian Peninsula, through Jerusalem was the ultimate goal. But they are going to get stopped for the first time in 56 years. The Mongols get stopped. Keeps them from going into Africa. Think about how significantly different culture could have been in the Middle East, especially leading into Africa, if the Mongols had went there, right? You would have started to see Asian culture, well, Eastern Asian culture, right? A lot of Asian cultures shown up into North Africa today with the growth of Islam. But what I'm saying is that far Eastern culture from China, Mongolia, Korea, Japan, you would have started to see some of that trickle in to Northern Africa a lot more. So the question is, have you ever seen a group that's so dominant in battle? I think there's some leaders in world history who give the Mongols a run for their money. You got to consider like Alexander the Great. Dude didn't lose, had a winning record. Not many times that people put him in a position where he was going to lose. He usually walked into battle and he had the upper hand based on his fighting strategy. This was a new strategy. The amount of horseback riders that the Mongols would have had, it was everybody. Typically you had cavalry in the military where some people were on horse, but that was not all. When you have an entire force of men flying, you know, at the top speed of a horse for hundreds of miles, there ain't no stopping that. You lay your head down at sleep thinking, oh, I'm here. The Mongols are way over here. They're not going to catch me. Like that. They're on your doorstep and they're knocking on the door. They say, knock, knock. It's us. You better surrender or die. The Mongols were not going to stop for anybody. So, with that being said, let's press forward. Here's some positives and negatives, okay? Positives. How do I move this? There we go. There we go. Okay. So, positives. If you look at the land that they really took over, let me go here. Perfect. That yellow area is where the Silk Road was. Y'all remember what the Silk Road was, right? Territory that connected what? Two civilizations, really. Connected European civilization and Far Eastern civilization, right? Originally created kind of by, you could say, traders of the Middle East, the Romans, the Chinese. They kind of all worked together to bring this thing to fruition. But if they reopened the Silk Trade, all right, here's why it happens. It's thanks to the Mongols. They saw an opportunity here to gain wealth, right? Because every time someone travels on the Silk Roads, if they run the land, guess what they got to give? Taxes, right? It's tax time, baby. You got to pay. Also, a young Italian, Marco Polo, traveled into Asia and basically wrote a book or like a story of the things he was witnessing, the wealth, the goods. And when he came back to Italy, he shared this knowledge with people. And people read his writings and they said, we want to bring back this trade connection with these Asian peoples. And they did. Thank you, Marco Polo. Thank you, Mongols. All right. The Silk Road was closed. It was shut down. There was no chance in the world of that coming back until these two groups, Marco Polo, the Italians, and also, excuse me, the Khans of the Mongols, bring it back together. Also, we have a new peace found between the East and the West. The Mongols, were they peaceful? No, by no means were they peaceful. But what I want to say is this. They were going to be peaceful once they got what they wanted. Once they got their land, once they got tribute or taxes from their people, they really didn't have any beef with anybody. Just live in peace, pay your taxes, you're good. This is known as the Pax Mongolica. Now, y'all remember Pax Romana. Pax Romana meant what? Roman peace. Pax Mongolica is a Latin term that means the Mongol peace, right? Also, on the Silk Road, this time it's going to spread new ideas. The concept of guns, gunpowder, going to trickle its way in from China to Europe. Now, that's huge because what's Europe going to use those guns for later? It's going to be war, but especially they're going to use it to conquer a new place on Earth that they have not yet discovered, the Americas, all right? Also, they bring Russia together for the first time in history. Here's some negatives, though. This is a lot of people. About 40 million people died from different reasons. Warfare, disease, you name it, okay? Also, many people ran out of their homes as refugees. They were scared. They knew the Mongols were coming. So a lot of people left their homeland and they tried to go places where they didn't think the Mongols would get them. So a lot of refugees. Think about what that does. Nothing wrong with trying to help people. But when refugees infiltrate cities and they go in and they take over land and there's homelessness, that messes with the economy. So that's a big issue. Also, the spread of the bubonic plague or the Black Death, as we mentioned earlier. It is estimated by historians that this kills somewhere between 30 and 60% of Europe in the Middle Ages, okay, in the 1300s, or as we call it, the 14th century. We'll learn about the bubonic plague soon. It was nasty. What was happening is on the Silk Road, it was a disease that was trickling in from Asia. What was happening is they would load up cargo onto wagons, chariots, you name it, ships, and they would send them to these cities. These black rats were in these cargo crates. And some people thought it was the rats, so much where there was an influx of feral cats that they tried to bring in to kill these things. But it wasn't even the rats. What it was something on the rats. It was what? What lives on a rat or an animal? Fleas, right? It's actually fleas. So let's wrap this up. Here are some interesting primary sources. They smell so heavily one cannot approach them. They wash themselves in urine. That's someone who was Chinese that said that about them. Talking about uncivilized, right? Washing themselves in urine. Now, do you think they actually wash themselves in urine? I have no idea. I'd have to look into that. Probably the fact that they were sitting on their horses so long. Sometimes they may have used the bathroom, right? And they didn't care. They had places to be, places to conquer. Sometimes they would have smelled like urine. It's not pleasant. Here's a quote from Genghis Khan. The greatest happiness is to vanquish or destroy your enemies, to chase them before you, to rob them of their wealth, to see those dear to them bathed in tears, to clasp to your bosom their wives and daughters. Meaning this, the best happiness is to destroy the people you want to conquer. And then, as you watch them die, to steal their wives, to steal their daughters, and marry them. That's what he did. We'll look at a stat about that here in just a second. Okay, here's what someone who is in the Pope's envoy for the Mongol Khans, all right, the Catholic Church sent somebody to live basically amongst the Khans to write. Here's what he said. They, the Mongols, attacked the Rus, the Kievan Rus, where they made great havoc. They destroyed cities and fortresses, slaughtering men. They laid siege to Kiev, the capital of the Rus. After they besieged the city for a long time, they took it and put the inhabitants to death. When they were journeying through that land, we came across countless skulls and bones of dead men lying about on the ground. Kiev was a very large and thickly populated town, but has now been reduced to almost nothing. There are at present time scarce 200 houses, and the inhabitants there are kept in complete slavery. Sounds like they put quite a fight against the Khans. The Khans did not appreciate that, so therefore these people lived in slavery. Weird fact. This may be some of y'all. If you look into your genealogy, you find out you have some Asian in you. Very well, this could be the case. Genghis Khan had so many descendants as they conquered, and took over land. He took a lot of women and he basically made them his wives, and he had a lot of kids. So with that being said, this is an interesting fact. He had so many kids and so many descendants. It is said, now this is a stat from about probably 3-4 years ago, so it may be higher today or a little lower, but the number puts in perspective. There are 16 million people in the world who are direct descendants of Genghis Khan. Now, to put that in perspective, if I'm not mistaken, I did the math. I think that's like 1 in every 250 or 1 in every 300 people is kin, shares the same DNA as Genghis Khan. And what's going to happen is over time, that number is only going to go up, right? Because more and more people are going to have more and more kids. That's how many people they kidnapped, right? It's how many people he took in as his wives. Like, a lot of people are kin to Genghis Khan. So if you have like heritage from these areas, like Eastern Europe, like in Russia, or the Middle East, or even into Asia, there could be a small chance you might be kin to Genghis Khan. Now, anyways, here's some sources real quick. Guys, I appreciate your attention. So I got some of this knowledge. Feel free to check it out on your own. Y'all can tell my throat's a little sore. I appreciate y'all hanging with me. Y'all have a great, great day. Peace and blessings and herbalism.